This is Supporting Employees with Brain Fog, Practical Strategies to Empower Your Team. Hi, I'm Leilani Saez with Natural Capacities Coaching and Consulting. Is someone on your team experiencing changes in their mental capacities, like confused thinking, difficulty concentrating, frequently forgetting information or losing their train of thought, or making unusual performance errors? These common brain fog symptoms can result in embarrassment, frustration, doubt, and fear. Brain fog can be hard to talk about and creates suffering in silence. So let's dive into ways you can empower your team right now. If you've noticed something off about an employee's thinking lately, but aren't sure what it is, they may be struggling with brain fog. Although it can be reversed, you may be surprised to know that there's no simple or fast brain fog fix, no matter what some people claim. And brain fog can happen at any age to anyone. In this presentation, I'll briefly explain what brain fog is and what causes it to help you better understand its impact. I'll also share strategies that support foggy brains to keep your team resilient and productive. Although there are no legal requirements at this point to provide specific brain fog accommodations, your effective leadership and support can make a tremendous difference for everyone on the team. So what is brain fog? When we talk about brain fog, we're talking about three primary cognitive problems that can create secondary physical ailments. First, general everyday thinking becomes suddenly compromised. It's slower, and you feel less mentally sharp than usual. And foggy brains can become easily confused, even about things they'd ordinarily know. Word finding, spelling, typing, and counting can also become more prone to errors. The second problem involves working memory processing. It's how we hold information in mind while doing or thinking about something else. So when working memory stops working properly, we can forget why we entered a room or whether we locked the door. Foggy brains can have a much harder time with multi-step coordination, like with planning and scheduling. The third problem involves attention. Foggy brains are more easily distracted, and once their attention is drawn away from the task at hand, refocusing can be very difficult. In addition, keeping focus to concentrate on reading or listening to others quickly can drain a foggy brain. Because thinking, remembering, and paying attention are much more effortful than usual, attempts to keep up with typical work can produce secondary ailments like headaches, fatigue, stomach issues, muscle tension. Energy plummets because extreme effort is being exerted to overcome extreme mental misfiring. What I mean by mental misfiring is this. The brain's primary duty is to transmit electrical and chemical signals throughout the body across our nervous system. In the middle of the screen is an enlarged neuron, or a brain nerve cell, and the lit areas shown represent electrical signals being sent or received. In healthy brains, this transmission of signals is synchronized, efficient, focused. Messages travel across the body's nervous system within specific networks that make up a particular pattern of behavior, emotion, or thought. It's well coordinated, like those dazzling holiday displays in which some strings of lights blink on in time to music while others remain off. But when brain fog is present, this flow of communication is significantly disrupted by overwhelming inflammation that creates thinking, memory, and attention problems. Inflammation, though, is not inherently bad. It helps our bodies heal. But high amounts of chronic inflammation create the opposite effect. Rather than help heal us, it begins to hurt us when it doesn't simmer down. And the source of the inflammation doesn't have to be in the brain. It just has to be substantial enough to impair this nervous system signaling. Research shows that a variety of things can cause brain fog, and I organize them into three main categories: women's hormones, chronic health conditions and their treatments, and lifestyle factors. It's becoming increasingly clear that estrogen plays a key role in sparking inflammation at different points across a woman's lifespan. Exactly how it does this, though, is still under investigation. Chronic health conditions, such as autoimmune disorders like multiple sclerosis, celiac, and diabetes, put the body at higher risk for experiencing overwhelming inflammation. This is because, although the underlying mechanisms in each of those conditions are different, they similarly perpetuate low levels of inflammation, like smoldering embers in a campfire, ready to ignite into fiery inflammation that'll produce brain fog. Although brain fog's connection with COVID-19 and chemotherapy may be familiar to you, sleep apnea is a less well-known cause. It's tricky to diagnose because not everyone shows dramatic signs of restricted airflow while sleeping or has a sleeping partner who notices the signs. But when we don't get proper sleep, our brains don't get a proper cleaning at night, resulting in the accumulation of mental byproducts that create clutter and inflammation. And how we manage stress, sleep, drink, move, and eat all impact how well we think. When our daily hygiene becomes unhealthy, we create the right conditions for inflammation to kindle and start a brain fog fire. Take a moment to think about the different mental activities your team does each day. Consider the ways that paying attention, remembering, and thinking are required. Now imagine how much harder it must be for someone to do this work with brain fog. Where might some help be needed? As the team leader, there's a lot you can do to support brain fog at work. You've taken an important first step by watching this video to learn more about brain fog's impact. Brain fog can roll in suddenly, without warning or clear cause, so it can be pretty stressful to manage without support. And it can be hard to talk about, both personally and professionally, for two main reasons. First, there's a tendency to believe that our brains are like machines or computers that don't require care. This simply isn't true. Like any other organ in the body, we must keep our brains in good health or risk facing negative consequences. We don't walk using our legs all day, yet a common misconception is that we can think using our brains in high gear all day. The second reason is that widespread fears about cognitive decline have created a serious stigma about brain fog, even though it is not the same as dementia. They both present scary cognitive problems, but they are different. There's still a lot to learn about brain fog, so assumptions, judgments, and unhelpful actions can sometimes be misguided or harmful, even when well-intended. So in general, be patient, clear, and flexible about assignments, and ensure that information is written down in an email or memo, on a whiteboard or notebook. Foggy brains can sometimes be unreliable in what they notice or remember, So it's best to use methods that can be counted on and quickly accessed. Incorporating adjustments to typical team operations can help to promote better mental processing. Of course, what needs to get done can't change, but flexibility in how it gets done can make a substantial difference. For example, team meetings can be exhausting for foggy brains because fast processing and information integration are required and can become overwhelming. So if team members are generally verbal discussions, try adding visuals to lessen the verbal or mental demands that can make it harder to think. And if you don't already, consider implementing brief, regular checks on progress to create opportunities to discuss questions or concerns that could arise. Your foggy team member needs to figure out what works best for him or her under the circumstances, and your constructive and timely feedback can help guide them in this process. You can also assess the influence of workplace environment and task factors on effective and efficient thinking. For example, in the environment, background noises, area messiness, and harsh lighting can burden the senses by creating attention-demanding distractions that can be hard for foggy brains to block out. In addition, interruptions require thinkers to mentally hold in mind what they were just doing while they deal with whatever's interrupting them. That's difficult for any brain, and interruptions make it more likely that a foggy brain will forget something in the switch of their attention. So consider how disruptions can be avoided to lessen the odds of forgetting and significant frustration. Use signposting to inform others when deep concentration is in progress, or hold a team meeting to generate the least disturbing ways to get quick questions answered. In terms of task factors, incomplete instructions, disorganization, and unclear deadlines hinder performance. Mentally bridging the gaps needed to make work coherently flow can pose serious challenges to foggy brains and heighten their anxiety. The simplest solution is to break down procedures into small, manageable parts to make it easier to spot information gaps. In addition, concentrating for a long time on a single task can fill the brain with information that might overload a foggy brain. You can help everyone on the team by encouraging brief breaks that enable all brains a moment to refresh as needed. As supervisor, you may have sensitive conversations with an employee who is struggling with brain fog, especially if performance concerns arise. Good leaders can still hold employees accountable despite the cognitive challenges and energy drains that brain fog creates, by communicating in ways that demonstrate respect for your employee as a person and for their work. For example, if you notice a chronic difficulty meeting deadlines, aim to communicate fairly about the issue and its impact, while also seeking a mutually beneficial solution. You might say something like, "I noticed the last two reports were late. This created a challenge for me because I had less time to pull together my presentation of the information. So what's needed to ensure your next report gets to me by the deadline?" Or you might compassionately offer a moment to mentally reset if they seem emotionally flustered or cognitively overloaded during a meeting or conversation, by saying something like, "It seems like a good time for a quick focus break. So let's take a 5-minute pause before continuing on with this." Even if you have a solid relationship with your team, an employee struggling with brain fog may not be comfortable sharing about their experience. Despite legal protections for long COVID, learning disabilities, and cognitive impairment under the Americans with Disabilities Act, currently specific disability protections do not uniquely exist for brain fog. Depending on its cause, how long brain fog lasts can vary from days to months, and your employee has the right to their privacy about it, no matter how or when it shows up. This video is intended to help you implement brain fog support whether or not there is any disclosure. Remember, brain fog does not mean that your employee can't do their work or that the team can't stay productive. It does, however, mean that work may need to be done differently on brain foggy days to remain optimally productive. Avoid assuming what your employee needs. Ask with curiosity and care, even when handling performance issues. And remember, the reasonable adjustments you make to support brain fog just may benefit the thinking of your entire team. You can make an important difference for your team through supportive action that lessens the negative impact of brain fog so that everyone can be and do their work well. Want to learn more about how to be cognitively resilient and work with your brain instead of against it? Visit naturalcapacities.com or connect with me on LinkedIn. Take care.